other noble lords have actually covered almost every issue that I was going to speak on today, so I'm going to be like a sparrow under a bird table and hop around and find things that I feel particularly strongly about. Other noble lords have spoken about environmental protection, animal welfare and sentience, public health. I thank the noble Lord Grantchester, for his kind comments about my amendment, number 74, which is basically about ensuring food standards, food safety, the environment, and so on, which is, of course, what you would expect from a Green. And the noble lady, Lady Pickering, Macintosh Pickering, also mentioned the good progress that we made on the trade bill before with the noble Lady Fairhead. And she did, in fact, work with us, and I thought we found a way forward. Also, Lord Stevenson was involved. And I realised that the noble Lord Grimstone, is not in the same place. His party now has a majority of 80 plus in the Commons, and therefore he doesn't need to talk to us in the same way. But the fact is, almost all the speeches have been united in our need for this in the bill. And that is partly why, because we simply don't believe the government, not individual ministers, whom we have a great deal of respect and even liking for, but we just don't trust the government. The government has proved again and again that it has no respect for the law and it has no respect for Parliament, and therefore we need it in the bill, because if it isn't there, then we don't believe it will happen. And it's a case of understanding that trade is not trade on its own. Trade actually impacts on virtually every area of our public life. And of course, we have a climate emergency which is happening now. Parts of America are just burning to death, and parts of the Arctic are melting into the sea, never to be ice in our lifetimes again. And we have to understand that trade impacts on that. There is no argument with that. And so, personally, I feel that there is no option but to embed these ideas of how to be a more sustainable country. We have to embed this in this bill. In fact, in every bill that we have. Next year, we are going to host COP26, and there was an oral question on this from the noble Lady Boycott today about sponsors and so on. And the noble Lord the Minister actually came back saying, well, you know, we're going to judge our sponsors on their short-term action plans and that sort of thing. Well, I'm afraid that's just not good enough. We don't trust the government to judge anything as sustainable or as climate-friendly. And they really have to go outside the government to find people who actually do understand what sustainability means and what the climate emergency means. I just, you know, we have an opportunity as a country to actually show some leadership. And quite honestly, we do not have leaders in the government at the moment. We actually have children who bluster and act like clowns, and I'm afraid it's all very embarrassing. And of course, I did mention the majority in the House of Commons, and the fact is that does let the government off the hook. Unfortunately, it means it absolves the government from any meaningful scrutiny. But we here, we scrutinise, and we can tell you that this bill is not good enough. Now, I'm still hopping around under the bird table. My Amendment 74 prevents the ratification of any trade agreement that doesn't comply with UK standards, or at least standards that are compatible in effectiveness with UK standards. And so it's a very simple, very effective amendment. I hope that the government will actually, you know, read it and see that I'm not trying to be difficult here, I'm actually trying to be helpful. And I want to echo the noble Lady Hennig, who also pointed out that we don't really know what criteria the government are using yet for all their trade deals. That they haven't actually given us any sort of meaningful policy intent or any criteria. We don't know how they're going to approach and evaluate trade negotiations and trade deals. I'm assuming that's because they don't know themselves. But it would be really helpful if we had some guidelines from the government about how they are going to take these issues forward. So with that, I will finish. I am deeply, deeply furious about the way this government is handling the whole country, and I can't blame the ministers here, but really, you know, we should all be thoroughly embarrassed as British citizens.